viewers of Staten Island Community Television. You're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm the team psychologist for the New York Giants, also known as Jaime Hixson. Now, we're hoping that we can be joined by Hector Boza on the phone at any moment from now. So, in the meantime, we want to let you know that you can also see past shows of ours on Facebook and Twitter. So if you want to get your fix of In the Bleachers, you can go either of those avenues. And of course, you can see the live shows right here on Fios and Spectrum. Fios is channel 37 and Spectrum is channel 1997. So, it's the beginning of October, which means only one thing. Baseball playoffs are beginning. And as you can probably tell, I've got my Yankee jersey on. I even have the luxury of a Yankee mask that my beloved Jennifer got me when we took a vacation to upstate not too long ago. Speaking of the Yankees, they just came off a 2-game sweep of the Cleveland Indians, and it was a very high-scoring 2 games that the Yankees had, and it was a good thing that they were able to break out of their little slump at the most opportune time, because there was a time when they looked really horrendous at the plate near the end of the regular season. But with the Indian series in full measure, the Yankees were able to win by scores of 12-3 and 10-9. And it was a real combination of really solid pitching by Garrett Cole and just the mashers that the Yankees have in their batting order that was able to catapult them to this series that's going to be starting in about an hour against the Tampa Bay Rays. And every Yankee fan knows exactly what the Rays did to the Yankees this season. The Rays were 8-2 against the Yankees during the regular season. And it's now gotten to a point where these two teams really do not like each other. Everyone saw what happened at the end of one of the games in Yankee Stadium, where there was almost a brawl that wound up breaking out between the two teams. And this, of course, was provoked by one Aroldis Chapman, who wound up aiming one of his 100-mile-an-hour fastballs at one of the Rays' hitters. And let me tell you, you would not believe how much hatred is going on between the two teams. They made no secret about it, that they don't like each other. And I think the Rays would like nothing better than to shut the Yankees up and finally get through this series against the Yanks. Now, as far as the matchups are concerned, I think the Yankees have the better ace, specifically Garrett Cole. He actually pitched better near the end of the regular season, and he also pitched extremely well against the Indians in that first game. And I think things for Cole started to change when he got Kyle Higashioka to be his catcher. Usually when it comes to pitchers, they really don't care who catches them in a particular game. But when it comes to Higashioka and Cole, there seemed to be a real chemistry going on between the two. And as it turns out, the two guys wound up growing up together in Southern California. So I think it would behoove the Yankees if they continued this relationship, this battery, into the playoffs, specifically with the Tampa series coming up. Now, this would mean either Gary Sanchez has to be on the bench or he has to be the designated hitter. of course, there's already a designated hitter that the Yankees have in Giancarlo Stanton, who, by the way, decided that he's going to pick up the final 7 years of his contract. So Yankee fans better get used to seeing him in pinstripes for another 7 years, because he could be their designated hitter of the present and the future. So, as far as the other matchups regarding the Yankees, I know that Davy Garcia, who's their stud prospect, he's going to be starting in Game 2. So it's going to be Cole and Garcia for Games 1 and 2. As far as the batting orders are concerned, you really have to notice what the Yankees have done as far as their batting order is concerned. Now, when you think about it, they have some real studs in that batting order. I mean, they've got DJ LeMahieu, who not only won a batting title, but was the Yankees' best player overall during the regular season. And then after that, you've got the combination of Mike Ford and Luke Voit taking time at first base. In all likelihood, it's going to be Voit that's going to be taking the majority of the time at first. Then there's LeMahieu at second. Then there's Gleyber Torres at shortstop. And then there's Gio Urshela, who's become a godsend at third base. Then you have your outfield. You have Aaron Hicks, you have Brett Gardner, and you also have Aaron Judge. A guy who may be the X factor in this entire series. I mean, he had a big home run in Game 1 of the Cleveland series, but then was held in check the rest of the way. It's crucial that Aaron Judge break out of his slump and start to get some big hits for the Yankees in this series, especially against the Rays, who, when you think about it, they have been, I don't want to say an underdog, but they really caught some people by surprise when they won the Eastern Division during the regular season. Now, as far as the Rays batting order, it's really a hodgepodge of guys that they have over here. I mean, they won the division. They won the division title with guys like Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lowe, Randy Arozarena, G-Man Choi, who's an ex-Yankee, Manuel Margot, Joey Wendell, Willie Adames, Kevin Kiermaier, and Mike Zunino. Adames is a very underrated hitter. Now, pitching is going to be a real key here, because we mentioned what the Yankees have. They have Cole, and they have Davy Garcia. Now, the Rays have their ace in the hole, Ian Snell, who's a former Cy Young Award winner. After that, the Rays are going to look for the Rays to do the mix and match thing that they did during the majority of the regular season. And my guess is the Rays are going to be using more left-handed pitchers to counter against the Yankee righties than they did in the past. As far as what this series holds, though, I mentioned before the Rays were 8-2 against the Yankees during the regular season. Now, let's see how the Yankees respond in this big series coming up against the Rays. My pick is the Rays in 4. I think the Rays are the better team. I think the Yankees have had major problems trying to get the big hit when they were supposed to, especially during the postseason. And I think this is probably the Rays' biggest opportunity to shine in a playoff series. I mean, when you think about it, on paper, the Yankees seem to have the better team, but the Rays just have a whole lot of momentum going, and they have a lot of confidence in knowing that they can beat the Yankees at any time. So I say the Rays win this series in 4 games. Now, in the other division series, they started one of them around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and that's the Athletics against the Astros. Leave it to the Astros to always come up with the biggest hit in the postseason. They did that against the Twins in the wild card series, and they're doing it currently against the Athletics in the division series. As a matter of fact, they are in, I think, the bottom of the 8th inning. Yep, bottom of the 8th inning right now, and the Astros have an 8-5 lead over the Athletics in a series that's being played in Los Angeles. Speaking of locations, you know that they're doing the bubble thing for each of the playoff series in Major League Baseball. They went with home sites for the wild cards, and for the division series, they're going to be using Los Angeles, Dodger Stadium, Petco Park in San Diego, Minute Maid Park in Houston, and Globe Life Park in Arlington, Texas, as the sites for the division series. Oh, the Astros got way too much playoff history to warrant a letdown, and the Athletics are just not a good division series team at all. This is why I like the Astros in a 4-game series. Now, as far as the National League is concerned, the Marlins are going to be playing the Braves in a series that's going to be played in Houston. The Marlins are a strange team to figure out. This is just the 3rd time that they've ever made the playoffs in 28 years of professional ball. Yet, in each of the first 2 series, or in each of the first 2 postseasons, I should say, the Marlins, not only did they win a series, they wound up winning a World Series. They have never lost a series in the playoffs ever. And the Marlins wound up coming away with a 2-game sweep over the Cubs to get this far, while the Braves swept the Reds to get this far. It's a very interesting matchup that they're going to be having. I think the Braves have the better team, but the Marlins got some young players who have shown to be really fearless in a series like this. Not only that, but the Braves seem to have a real problem with first-round playoff series, although Cincinnati, they didn't give them any trouble whatsoever. In fact, they wound up shutting out Cincinnati for the entire wild card series. So I'm going to go with the upset in this one. I'm picking Miami in 4 games to beat the Braves. And as for the other division series, I think some Southern California baseball fans might be licking their chops when they see this one. Padres and Dodgers in a series that's going to be taking place in Arlington, Texas. The Dodgers were the complete team in baseball this season. They won the West. They wound up just surging past the Brewers in the wild card series. As far as the Padres are concerned, they overcame a slow start against St. Louis and won the last 2 games. Whereas the Dodgers are the more complete team with guys like Cody Bellinger and Kike Hernandez and several other guys, and of course the ace in the hole, Clayton Kershaw. The Padres have been led all season by Fernando Tatis Jr. This is a kid who is a superstar in the making, now and in the future. Do I say that the Padres might have a chance to beat the Dodgers in a big series like this? If the Padres want to win this series, they're going to have to get some really good pitching. And pitching has been a little bit of a weakness because the guy that they acquired to be their ace, Mike Clevinger from the Indians, unfortunately hurt his forearm, so he missed the wild card series, and there's a strong possibility, a 50-50 possibility, that he'll miss the Dodgers series coming up. If the Padres can get Mike Clevinger back from injury, then their chances would really improve. But if not, they just fall by the wayside. As far as who wins this series, for some reason, the Padres just have this wave of momentum riding their way. And the Dodgers have been a bit of a playoff disappointment in the last 5 years or so. Granted, they've played in 2 straight World Series, but last year was a real flop for them when they wound up losing to the Nationals in 5 games. And the Nationals, of course, wound up going to the championship. As far as what else is going on, well, I forgot to make my prediction. Plain and simple, the Padres have a lot of emotion going for them, and I think they've got the major superstar that could catapult them to a series. So I like the Padres in a 5-game series, and that would mean the Padres taking on the Marlins and the Astros taking on the Rays in the respective league championship series. And let me tell you, that is going to be a ratings flop for the people at Fox and for TBS. Well, aside from that, since baseball's regular season is over, we'd be remiss if we did not tell you about what's going on with the Mets. It was a complete and unmitigated disaster to the end of the regular season. They wound up getting swept by the Nationals, so their playoff chances were completely foiled. Now comes the off season, I should say. First and foremost, the Mets have got to do something about their pitching. I mean, granted, Jacob deGrom pitched like Jacob deGrom, and David Peterson, who got promoted from the minor leagues, believe it or not, became their best pitcher this season. And he basically got through the regular season by tossing some breaking stuff, which he was able to get away with, and which made him shine in the eyes of Met management. So right now you've got those 2 guys as possible as a possible 1-2 punch for next season. After that, who are you going to rely on? Do you rely on Noah Syndergaard, who's coming off a major surgery? Do you rely on Marcus Stroman, who may or may not be around next season? It's gotten to the point where the Mets really have to start being aggressive in looking for some pitching prospects or some free agent pitchers. And now that the Mets are close to having the new ownership in the form of Stephen Cohen, dare we say that this guy is going to show some aggression and go after guys like Corey Kluber or maybe the guy from the Reds? It's going to have to take that much in order to try and make the Mets a contender for next season. And what about the batting order? Michael Conforto was actually the Mets' best hitter this season. Now, does that warrant a new contract? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think he's supposed to be approaching arbitration. And the Mets are going to really, excuse me, cough up a lot of dough in order to make Conforto the guy in their batting order and in the defensive outfield for the future. And of course, Pete Alonso, coming off a 53 home run season in 2019, was a major letdown this season. I mean, granted, he did streak a little bit near the end of the regular season, but this offseason, he's really going to have to try and shape up or ship out, because the Mets can only take so much when it comes to rallies and just failing miserably in trying to develop rallies. Now, what's going to be done about the catching situation? Are they bringing Wilson Ramos back? Could they go with the kid from the minor leagues, Ali Ramirez? As far as center field goes, what's going to be of Yoenis Cespedes? He's coming off not only a major surgery, but he decided to opt out after hitting a couple of home runs. So this is the part where the Mets really have to buckle down and try and figure out exactly what they want to do. Now, as far as their front office is concerned, Brody Van Wagenen is still the general manager, and now he's got Sandy Alderson, who's been hired as the team president, watching over his shoulder. I'd like to think that maybe these two can have some kind of working relationship and not have any rumors try and get between the two. Of course, my partner Hector made it loud and clear when he said that Van Wagenen was going to get fired. I'm not so sure that's such a good idea. I mean, Van Wagenen's only been on the job for a couple of years. We want to see the guy prove himself a little bit before anything else. And keep in mind, Sandy Alderson was the guy that built those title contenders in Oakland, and also wound up building that title contender with the Mets in 2015. Let's see if these guys can work together to try and come up with a team that could be a real contender for the foreseeable future. Now, we can get to the point where we talk about football. It is what it is, folks. The Jets and the Giants are now 0-4. But what frustrates the fans the most was the fact that each game that these teams played, they were this close to maybe taking a lead by creating a play down the stretch. The Giants, I'll tell you, they really let that Rams game get away from them, because the Giants actually played some really decent football just yesterday. I mean, the defense was, believe it or not, good. I mean, granted, they didn't make much of a pass rush, but the run stuffing was good. I think Daniel Jones actually made a couple of plays before the final 2 minutes of the game. And it got to the point where maybe this guy would, or this kid would have probably been able to do himself some justice by making a play at the end of the game. But unfortunately, Jones had to turn the ball over once again, and that was that. Now, as far as the Jets are concerned, let's put it this way. Sam Darnold was not perfect whatsoever. He did have his moments where he was able to make some plays of his own. For example, the 50-yard run for a touchdown, which gave the Jets a lead for a short time. Other than that, once again, the Jet defense failed miserably, getting torched for 37 points. And not only that, but the Jets wound up making that kid quarterback that the Broncos have, Rippon, who, by the way, is the nephew of the former Super Bowl winning quarterback, Mark Rippon, looked like his uncle in his glory days. It got to the point where he was throwing darts on the right side of the field, on the left side of the field. He actually looked decent out there. Now, as far as the Jets are concerned, the Jets have a game coming up next weekend. I'm going to see if I can find the scores for you. Week 5 is going to be, here we are. Well, the Jets are going to host the Arizona Cardinals, a team that has been pretty decent so far. Of course, the Cardinals didn't do themselves any favors yesterday because Kyler Murray wound up throwing 3 interceptions. So you know the Cardinals are going to want to take their frustrations out on a Jets team that's still looking for a victory. As far as the Giants are concerned, the Giants are going to face the Cowboys, and it's a Cowboys team that's 1-3 and is going to want to really lick their chops at getting a second victory against 3 losses. Now, as far as the other games were concerned, well, there's 2 Monday night games that are taking place right now. One of them is Chiefs and Patriots. They're in the first quarter, and the Chiefs lead 3-0. And the other game, excuse me, is Falcons-Panthers in a 9 o'clock start. Now, as far as the other games that were going on during the weekend, I see Tom Brady made like his old self again, throwing for 5 touchdowns as he led the Buccaneers to victory over the Chargers. And the Ravens wound up getting a big victory over their against their Beltway rivals, the Washington football team. The Ravens have now scored 20 points or more in 27 straight games, if you can believe that. And this goes back, I think, to 2018. Elsewhere, I see the Seahawks are now 4-0 after they beat the Dolphins, as Russell Wilson wound up coming away with a big game. And the Vikings and Texans squared off in a battle of winless teams, and it was the Vikings that came away with a victory. Dalvin Cook wound up scoring another pair of rushing touchdowns. He's now got 6 rushing touchdowns in 4 games this season. As far as other games, the Saints and the Lions wound up scoring off in Detroit. The Saints came from behind for the victory. Detroit now has lost their last 6 games in which they led by 10 points or more. Here's a question for you. What's going on with the Cleveland Browns? They're 3-1. Coming away with a victory over the Cowboys despite a 450-yard game from Dak Prescott, which he accomplished in his 3rd straight game. That's an NFL record, believe it or not. As far as other games are concerned, Joe Burrow recorded his first career win as a starting quarterback as he led the Bengals to victory over the Jaguars. And the Panthers wound up coming away with a victory, 31-21 over the Cardinals. So both of those teams are 2-2. The Panthers won this game even without Christian McCaffrey. They've now played 2 games without Christian McCaffrey, and go figure, they've actually won both games. In Vegas, the Bills wound up coming away with a victory over the Raiders. Now the Bills are 4-0 to start the season. The Colts held on to beat the Bears, so both of those teams are 3-1. Look no further than the Colts' rushing defense, which allowed them to get this victory, giving up only 28 yards in the game. And then there was the Sunday night game where the Eagles came from behind from 10 points down, and they wound up beating the 49ers 25-20. An impressive comeback by the Eagles. This despite a 183-yard game by George Kittle. So the Eagles wound up getting their first win of the year. The 49ers are hovering at 500 right now. They're 2-2. Now, let's turn to basketball for a little bit. The NBA Finals are 3 games old, and predictably, the Lakers have come away with a 2-1 lead in the series against the Miami Heat. But let me tell you, it really shows how much of a difference a game makes when 2 of your best players are absent because of injuries. Specifically, Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic. They missed the last 2 games of this series because of injuries. But what happened in Game 3? Jimmy Butler rescued them. Jimmy Butler came away with a 37-point game in Game 3 against the Lakers last night. Now, Game 4 is going to be tomorrow night. What is going to be of Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic? Are they still going to be out because of injury, or do they have a chance to make a short contribution for their team? Now, one thing's for certain, though. We know who's going to be showing up for the Lakers: Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Whereas LeBron has been the same old as in years past, Anthony Davis has shown why he really is one of the best players in the game. He's been doing it from inside and outside. His rebounding has been great. Defensively, he's really held his own. So it remains to be seen how much more Anthony Davis can give their club in the next game or two. As far as other things going on in the NBA, well, Doc Rivers unfortunately lost his job with the Clippers, but almost immediately he wound up getting himself a brand new job. He's now the head coach of the 76ers, and I think it's a perfect match for them. Rivers has already won a championship. He made the Clippers a contender. Now, it's just a matter of time before we see what he can do with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and the other role players that the Sixers have. And I think it's a match made in heaven for those two sides. And one other, actually, there were 2 other coaching vacancies. Houston is now without Mike D'Antoni, who decided to leave Houston after 5, almost 7 seasons. And also, Billy Donovan has parted ways with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he wound up getting a job almost immediately with the Chicago Bulls. All I can say is I hope Donovan knows what he's doing taking such a sad sack job like Chicago. With all of the young players that the Bulls have, they still cannot seem to find their own way. That's why this number one draft pick that they have coming up is going to be really important for their future. So that's pretty much it on basketball. As far as hockey is concerned, a new champion was crowned, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning, who needed 6 games to beat the Dallas Stars. Congratulations to the Lightning, and I certainly hope that the Islanders, who the Lightning beat to get to the finals, can do something to try and make themselves a Stanley Cup contender. They were this close to getting to that top of the mountain. But you know what? The Islanders had a tremendous playoff. I mean, they wound up beating Florida, they beat Washington, and then they beat Philadelphia, which got the number 1 seed, excuse me, in the Eastern Conference. And somehow the Islanders were able to go through all 3 of those teams in order to get to the conference finals. As far as the Rangers are concerned, I told people before that it was just a matter of time before Henrik Lundqvist was going to be an ex-Ranger, and it happened. Henrik Lundqvist had his contract bought out by the Rangers, so now he's an unrestricted free agent. He hasn't really said whether he's going to be continuing to play or if he's going to retire or not. But tell you what, whatever he does, he's already had a terrific career. And mark my words, he is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. As far as what his future holds, the sky's the limit for that guy, to be honest with you. I think he could probably be the missing piece for a contender that's in need of a goaltender. So let's just see what happens down the road. Well, it looks like I've covered everything that has needed to be covered. So let's see what's going on in other stuff that's occurring in sports. Well, they had college football over the weekend. And as expected, the majority of the ranked teams wound up winning. The number 1 ranked team in the country, Clemson, wound up coming away with a victory by 18 points over Virginia. Let's see, LSU won over Vanderbilt. The big upset of the weekend, Iowa State. Iowa State came from behind to beat Oklahoma 37-30. And then there was the rivalry that's known as the oldest rivalry in the South. Georgia wound up beating Auburn. And here's a mild upset. Tulsa wound up beating Central Florida. Alabama won over Texas A&M. North Carolina won over Boston College. Cincinnati won over South Florida. And Oklahoma State won over Kansas, while SMU held on to beat Memphis. And North Carolina State beat Pittsburgh by a point. And Texas Christian beat Texas by 2 points. And Tennessee wound up beating Missouri by 23. And Florida came away with a 14-point victory over South Carolina. And Brigham Young wound up winning 45-14 over Louisiana Tech. So as far as what's going on this weekend in college football, well, probably the best game of the weekend, Miami and Clemson. Miami and Clemson in the ACC. Also, Florida State at Notre Dame. I'm still trying to get over the fact that Notre Dame is actually a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference in college football. For the entirety of their existence, Notre Dame had never joined the conference for college football. They long had a relationship with the Big Ten. Then they decided to cut a deal, that is, with the Atlantic Coast Conference. And this is going on 3 years now that Notre Dame has had a deal going with the ACC. Sorry, but you just can't take a team from the Midwest and make them an Atlantic Coast Conference squad. It just doesn't work. That's just a summary of some of the games that are going on in college football. There's something really special about the college game. I mean, the tailgating, the bands, the mascots, kids knowing that they may never get a shot at the pros, using the college game as their one last shot at glory. The unpredictableness of some of these games. I mean, who saw Iowa State beating Oklahoma? Definitely not me. Did you know Oklahoma had gone 60 years without losing to Iowa State in Ames, Iowa? And now the Cyclones come away with probably the biggest win in the program's career. And also, Iowa State has now gone 108 years without a single conference championship. That is a drought which needs to end immediately for that program. Now, as far as other stuff that's going on in the world of sports, I see the WNBA finals wound up starting over the weekend in Bradenton, Florida. It's Seattle against Las Vegas, and Seattle won the opener. So now Seattle has a 1-0 lead. Seattle, of course, has 2 former UConn stars that won national championships for Gino Auriemma. There's Sue Bird and there's Brianna Stewart. And this just in, excuse me, the A's wound up coming away with a 10-5 victory over the let me start over again. The Astros came away with a 10-5 victory over the Athletics. So the Astros lead that series 1-0, and they have a chance to take a 2-0 lead tomorrow afternoon. So let's see, we got about 16 minutes left. I wonder if there's anything going on in wrestling that we should probably know about. Well, one thing that's been going on in WWE lately is Roman Reigns suddenly becoming a heel and aligning himself with Paul Heyman, of all people. The critics are all in agreement that Roman Reigns being a heel and acting like one is probably the best thing for his career, and that he could probably be the most popular heel this side of The Rock, circa 1999. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think Roman Reigns is the WWE champion. So, let's see. Let's see how far this this whole storyline can take him. You'll have to excuse me, folks. Just got an instant message from my friend Lynn saying that it was good to see me on the air again. Tell you what, this show wouldn't be complete without Hector here. Because believe it or not, he adds a lot to the table that that people don't know about. If I could probably add a little bit more to that Yankees versus Rays first round series. The Yankees are pretty much close to healthy. They got Giancarlo Stanton back. They got Aaron Judge back. Now the question is, who are they going to rely on when they have to go to their bullpen? Because when they went up against the Indians in the wild card round, the Yankees pretty much left it up to Garrett Cole to take the majority of the innings in Game 1. Then in Game 2, Masahiro Tanaka wound up taking the 4+ innings, and then it was on to the back end of the bullpen. Curiously, Adam Ottavino was not used for any of the games in that series. Of course, there's a reason, because Adam Ottavino was not pitching well during the regular season. Now, could this be the time that Adam Ottavino finally gets a chance to pitch in a big game? Or are they going to go to other guys to try and right the ship for the Yankees in this series? I mean, think about it. The Yankees somehow were able to get 33 wins with a starting rotation that was creaky and a bullpen that was very, very shaky. Of course, there's the one constant that the Yankees have in their bullpen, and that's Aroldis Chapman. So let's see if he can hold the fort. And also, let's see if the starting pitching can take the majority of the innings. I'm not really a fan of giving your starters just 3 or 4 innings and then going to the bullpen. That's really taxing your bullpen right there. And somehow the Rays have been able to continue using their bullpen by committee during each game that does not involve Ian Snell. The Rays have always gone with one guy for one inning to start off, and then another guy for the second inning, and then on and on and on. There are some teams that have actually picked up on that, and they've done reasonably well. Now, let's see exactly how much this will work for the Rays in this series. And for the record, the Yankees are now 20 minutes away from starting Game 1 of this series against the Rays in San Diego. Lost in this whole thing, since the series is being played in San Diego, the Yankees and the Rays have to share the same hotel and the same amenities outside the hotel with the Rays. Talk about awkward. I just hope that nothing gets started in the form of a benches clearing brawl, because then you're going to have guys suspended and fined, and we really do not want to have any of that drama on the field. Now, as far as what else is going on in the world of sports, let me see if I can find some other stuff that we can bring in. Oh. Lately in basketball, you've been seeing a lot of sons of former players committing to colleges. Well, as it turns out, Dikembe Mutombo's son, Ryan, is going to follow in his father's footsteps and go to Georgetown. Amazing. Now, Ryan Mutombo is described as I think 6'8" in height. And like his dad, Ryan's got legit size with long arms and a sturdy frame. He also has really good hands and touch around the basket. He's got a good feel as a passer out of the high post and on the block. He shot the ball from mid-range area with confidence, and his mechanics are fine. He also has an impressive feel for the game and a high IQ. A good area rebounder and rim protector, but he lacks lift and just gets end-to-end okay. A true low-post player, a late bloomer with a major upside. I think Georgetown wound up with the right kid. And for the record, he's with the class of 2021, which means he'll be available to start for the Hoyas in the fall of 2021. And he was being pursued by some really good teams: Arizona, Tennessee, and Stanford. That's a good complement of schools that were chasing after him. Well, going back to college football, the Big Ten has announced that they're going to start their season I think in November, if I'm not mistaken. By the way, the Monday Night Football got joined by Patriots versus Chiefs for tonight. The reason why that happened, it was because there were positive tests on the Chiefs' side. So they wound up moving that game to tomorrow. Well, about 5 minutes to go. Let me just state for the record that first off, let me apologize, folks, for a lot of the pauses that were going on in between my monologue. I was going through my phone just to see if I could find some other stuff that's going on. So, just a few more minutes remaining before Yankees versus Rays begins. If the Yankees want to make a dent in this series, this is the game to do it. They've got their ace, Garrett Cole, and he's going up against a really, really tough lineup, which we mentioned before. Now, just under 4 minutes to go. I mentioned before that most of our shows are also seen on reruns through Facebook and Twitter. So if you want to check out a show in the that you had missed, definitely go to Facebook and Twitter to try and track it down. All right, we got about 3 minutes to go. Just want to give a shout out to Kenny Graham, who's on the other side of the glass. And also, I want to wish Hector Boza well as he battles his multiple illnesses. It's probably why he wasn't able to make it onto the show today, because he was sick. So hopefully he'll be able to join us for our Columbus Day show that's going to be taking place next Monday night. About 2.5 minutes to go. Well, one final note on basketball. Whether or not Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic make it to Game 4 or not, the Heat really need to get another big game from Jimmy Butler, especially after the way he played in Game 3 last night. You know, one thing that's come out of this series, and also the previous 3 series that the Heat played in, was the play of Duncan Robinson, and also the play of Kelly Olynyk. Duncan Robinson has really taken a lot of people by surprise. And also Kelly Olynyk has been a real tough guy underneath the boards and defensively. So with less than a minute to go, I think we're just going to wrap it up right now. So for everyone here, I'm Jamie. Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope to see you on Columbus Day next week. Good night, everyone.